The glass hits her face before she hears it move. Cold. Pulpy. Orange juice, every drop of it, thrown in a flat, deliberate arc that catches the left side of Zariah Amara Cole's temple, runs through her tight coils, and drips off the line of her jaw onto the collar of her white maid's uniform. The glass doesn't shatter. It lands back on the marble counter with a clean click, set down by a man who is completely in control of himself, and completely aware of what he just did. I said fresh squeezed. Mr. Harlan Beaumont's voice is low and smooth in the way that rich men's voices go low and smooth when they want you to feel small without giving anyone a quotable sentence. Is that a hard concept for you to follow, or do I need to write it on the wall? The Beaumont estate kitchen is the size of most people's apartments. Copper pots. Sub-zero refrigerators. White marble that cost more than Zariah's car, her brother's first 2 rounds of treatment, and 3 months of rent combined. It is 7:14 in the morning. The kitchen is empty except for the 2 of them, and the man standing in the far doorway, half inside the shadow, who has not moved since the glass landed. Hi, viewers. I need to ask you something right now. Have you ever stood in a room, soaking wet, with someone else's cruelty running down your face, and had to decide whether your next breath would cost you everything? Drop a yes or a no in the comments. Because that is exactly where Zariah is standing. She does not flinch. She stopped flinching at 23. What she does instead is math, the fast, silent, survival kind. Her brother Darius is 19 days from his next infusion at Georgetown University Hospital. The specialist does not accept the insurance her employer provides. The number in her savings account is a fact she stopped looking at directly 3 weeks ago. She reaches for the dish rag on the rack beside the stove. Presses it to her jaw. I'll make a fresh one, Mr. Beaumont. You'll stand right there and listen first. He steps closer. He is a thick man, red from too much sun and too much scotch, and the confidence he carries is the kind that has never once been challenged in a room that mattered. My wife's charity dinner is Saturday. I have people coming who expect a certain standard. You have been a consistent disappointment. She heard you. The voice comes from the doorway. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just a sentence placed into the room the way a stone is placed in the center of a still pond, and everything around it changes. Zariah does not turn around. She holds herself still, rag against her jaw, because something in that voice tells her that movement right now would break something she cannot afford to break. The man in the doorway is tall. He wears a black suit, collar open, no tie. On the left side of his neck, climbing toward his jaw, is a tattoo, dark ink detailed, the kind that does not apologize for being there. His hands are in his pockets. He is looking at Harlan Beaumont with an expression that is not anger. It is not even contempt. It is something far more efficient than both. It is the look of a man who has already decided how this ends. Mr. Kwon. Beaumont starts. You are done speaking. Silence. Harlan Beaumont, a man who threw a glass of juice at a woman 11 minutes ago without hesitation, closes his mouth. He looks at Kwon. He recalculates something behind his eyes. Then he straightens his shirt, picks up his phone from the counter, and leaves the kitchen. The door swings shut, and the room is quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator, and the sound of Zariah pressing the rag harder against her jaw so her hand will stop shaking. She is not shaking because she is afraid. She is shaking because nobody has ever done that before. The man, Kwon, crosses the kitchen without looking at her. He opens the refrigerator, retrieves a cold orange from the bottom shelf, and sets it on the counter beside her. He does not hand it to her. He does not announce it. He simply places it there, like that is the obvious next thing, and then turns around. He looks at her the way a person reads a document they need to understand before they respond. 11 months, he says. Not a question. Zariah blinks. Excuse me? That's how long you've worked here. He tilts his head just slightly. And you haven't told anyone about the wage discrepancies. Every muscle in her body goes tight. How do you know about that? He does not answer the question. Instead he says, quietly and without ceremony, Come here. Let me show you something. And Zariah Marakol, who has spent 11 months learning not to trust anyone in this house, picks up the orange and follows him. The room has no windows. That is the first thing Zariah notices. The second is the screens, stacked in a grid across the entire east wall, 12 monitors cycling through feeds she recognizes. The kitchen. The staff entrance. The laundry hallway off the back corridor where she changes into her uniform every single morning. Her stomach drops. He's been watching, she says. Her voice comes out flat, like the air went out of something inside her. Longer than you've been here. Joon-Seo leans against the wall beside the monitors, arms crossed, watching her process it. He does not soften the delivery. The wage withholding is structured. At the end of every quarter, he reclassifies overtime hours as training time. It clears audit review. It is not careless. It is designed. Zariah stares at the screens. She stares at the feed of the laundry hallway. She stares at the one labeled staff entrance, timestamped from this morning, showing her own figure walking in at 6:47 a.m. How many people? She asks. Currently on staff? 4. He pauses. In the last 3 years? 17. 17. 17 people who went home with less than they earned. 17 people who sat in their cars after their shifts and tried to figure out what they miscounted, what clause they missed, what they could have done differently, when the answer was nothing. When the answer was that it was never a mistake. It was a machine, and they walked into it, and the man in the kitchen upstairs built it on purpose. What hurt her most, the narrator says quietly, was not the glass of orange juice. It was standing in that room and understanding, in her body, the way you understand things that cannot be taken back, that it was planned. She turns from the screens. Her voice is steady only because she has had a lot of practice making it steady. Why are you showing me this? Because you are standing inside it, Joon-Seo says. And you should know the shape of what you're inside. He pushes off the wall. And because I have a use for the documentation. You're building a case against him. For 4 months. He says it plainly, no performance of virtue in it. His firm manages 3 commercial properties I am acquiring. He has been obstructing site inspections and delaying deed transfers. I am accelerating his removal from that position. This is the most honest thing anyone has said to her inside this building in 11 months. He is telling her the actual reason. Not wrapping it in charity. Not performing rescue. He helped her because it aligned with what he was already doing, and he is telling her that directly, like she is a person who deserves the full truth and not a managed version of it. That honesty, more than anything else that has happened this morning, is what makes her stay in the room. I'll cooperate, she says. Documentation, testimony, whatever you need. I don't need you to cooperate. He looks at her steadily. I'm asking whether you want help leaving this position. That is a separate offer from the case. I am making it because you have been here 11 months and you have not left, and I think that is not because you want to be here. Zariah looks at him. She thinks about Darius. She thinks about the 19 days. She thinks about the laundry corridor on the screen behind her, her own figure, 6:47 a.m., every morning, walking into a machine that was counting on her to not figure out what it was. What kind of help? She asks. He reaches into his jacket. Produces a card, clean, heavy stock, a phone number and nothing else. He sets it on the edge of the monitor desk. He does not hand it to her. He leaves it there, available or not, her decision entirely. She looks at the card. Looks at him. He says, "Do you want this stopped, or do you want it understood?" It is not a small question. Stopped means she takes the help and walks away with something intact. Understood means she knows exactly what was done to her, all of it, documented, named, and she decides from there what she does with that knowledge. He is giving her the choice. He is actually giving her the choice. Zariah reaches out and picks up the card. She does not answer him yet. And Joon-Seo Kwon does not push her. The document arrives on a Tuesday. Not a text. Not a phone call. 12 pages, printed, delivered by a man in a charcoal suit who introduces himself as Min-Jun Lee and stands in the lobby of the coffee shop on Connecticut Avenue with the particular stillness of someone who has spent years learning how to be present without being noticed. Soraya reads all 12 pages. Twice. Then a third time, slower, because she has learned to read things slowly when the stakes are high enough to make her want to rush. The terms are specific. A 2-bedroom apartment in a property Joon-Seo Kwon owns in DuPont Circle. Access code hers alone. Utilities covered. No staff key. A direct salary, not an allowance, deposited bi-weekly into a bank account in her name only, which he has no access to. A medical network, and in subsection 4b, she finds the words, specialist referral, followed by the name of the Georgetown University Neurology Department, and she has to press her thumb flat into the center of her palm and breathe for a full 10 seconds before she can keep reading. And then, near the bottom of page 11, 3 lines that she reads 4 separate times just to be certain she is reading them correctly. Either party may terminate this arrangement with 30 days written notice. No conditions required. No cause necessary. She can leave. At any time. For any reason. With 30 days notice and no explanation owed to anyone. She calls the number on the card. He answers on the second ring. You have questions. Conditions, she says. I have conditions. A pause. Clean, unhurried. Tell me. My own space means my own space. No cameras in my residence. No staff monitoring my schedule. No check-ins unless I request them. She pauses. My salary is direct deposit into an account you cannot touch. Not access to yours. Mine. Another pause. The exit clause stays. And I want it in paragraph 1. Not buried on page 11. The line is quiet for 4 full seconds. Done, he says. All of it. She blinks. That quickly? I had already drafted the revision. I wanted to understand which terms mattered most to you before I presented it. She sits with that. He prepared for her conditions. Before she made them. He thought through what she would need and built the revision before the conversation, because he was already taking her seriously before she gave him a reason to. That is not a small thing. One more condition, she says. Yes. My brother Darius is in treatment at Georgetown University Hospital. Neurology, Dr. Anita Reeves. Same team. Same facility. Whatever network access this arrangement includes, it cannot disrupt what's already in place for him. Subsection 4c. Joon-Seo says. Already written in. The network is supplemental. Nothing about his current protocol changes. She exhales through her nose. Quiet and controlled. I want to meet in person before I sign. Name the place. The meeting is 2 days later. A restaurant in Georgetown, afternoon, quiet, a corner table that she clocks immediately for its clear sight lines to the door. He is already seated when she arrives 10 minutes early, which means he got there before that. She sits. Orders water. Looks at him across the table. I have one question, she says. And I need a real answer. He waits. Why me? You've been working this case for 4 months. There were 16 other people before me. Why am I the one getting 12 pages and a DuPont Circle apartment? He considers the question. It is not avoidance. She can see the machinery behind his eyes actually running, sorting, deciding how much of the honest answer to give her. He gives her all of it. 6 weeks ago, there was a discrepancy in the estate's supply inventory. 11 staff members walked past it over 3 days. You stopped. You pulled the original purchase receipt, photographed both copies, and filed one in the staff records binder. He picks up his water glass. Nobody asked you to. You did it because you noticed something was wrong, and you documented it. I had been in that house for 2 weeks at that point. That was when I knew. Soraya stares at him. You've been watching me for 6 weeks. Observing. There is a difference. She picks up the pen from beside the document on the table. She looks at the signature line. She thinks about the orange juice still drying in her memory, about 17 people, about Darius and Dr. Reeves and subsection 4C. This is temporary, she says. As you say, Joon-Seo agrees. She signs. What neither of them says, in the quiet of that Georgetown restaurant, what neither of them is ready to name, is that he did not look away from her face for a single second while she signed. The apartment smells like fresh paint and someone else's careful thinking. Cream walls. A kitchen with real counter space and a window that catches the morning light from the east. A bedroom door with a deadbolt she did not request, and which is therefore entirely for her peace of mind. Zariah Mara Cole stands in the center of the living room on the first evening with her 2 bags and the framed photo of Darius she keeps in the outside zip pocket, always in the outside zip pocket, always reachable, and she feels something shift in her chest that she does not immediately have a name for. It is not gratitude. It is older than that. It is the complicated, almost painful feeling of someone who has been holding their breath for so long that breathing normally now feels like it requires instruction. She does not see Joon-Seo for 9 days. He occupies the penthouse 3 floors above her, access to a separate elevator bank, managed by Min-Jun Lee and a small team she has clocked at 4 people total. She has her own entrance code, her own mailbox, her own schedule. The arrangement is, on paper, nothing. 2 people in the same building. Parallel lines. Then she opens her refrigerator on day 4. On the middle shelf is a sealed glass container. A small card is taped to the lid, written in precise handwriting, smothered chicken and rice. Your grandmother's version, from what I could find. Reheats at 325, not 350. Stir the gravy once halfway through. She stands in her kitchen in her socks for a long time. She never told him anything about her grandmother. She never told anyone in the Beaumont house anything personal, because personal information inside a house like that becomes leverage, and she learned that lesson at 23 in a way she has not fully put down since. But he knows. And the knowing is not announced, it is not presented as generosity, or as a demonstration of how attentive he is. It is simply food in her refrigerator, specific to who she actually is, placed there the way you place something obvious in an obvious spot. She eats it standing at the counter. It is correct. The richness of the gravy, the tenderness of the chicken, the way the rice has absorbed everything underneath. Someone paid attention to proportion and did not cut corners. She finishes the whole container, and washes it out, and sets it on the drying rack and does not examine too closely what she is feeling. She tells herself it is nothing. She tells herself she is not the kind of woman who reads meaning into someone's cooking. Then the salt shaker starts moving. There is a shared kitchen space on the 14th floor that residents sometimes use for larger meal prep, marble counters, a commercial range, a long stretch of open space. Zariah uses it on Sunday mornings because the light is better up there, and she has decided, in this new chapter of her life, to give herself good light. The first Sunday, she uses the salt shaker on the far right end of the counter, far enough that she has to reach slightly, a small inconvenience. Nothing worth noting. The next Sunday, the salt shaker is 4 inches to the left. She does not move it. She uses it from its new position. The Sunday after that, it is another 3 inches closer to the main prep area. She tests it. She moves it back to the far right end. The following Sunday, it is close again. Nobody else uses that kitchen on Sunday mornings. She has been there 4 times now, and has seen no one. She sits on the counter stool and looks at the salt shaker for a full minute. It is an ordinary object. Off-white ceramic, maybe 6 inches tall. And yet sitting there in the Sunday morning light, it represents something she does not have a clean word for, the specific unsettlement of a woman who is beginning to understand that being noticed carefully by someone who has no obligation to notice you at all is its own kind of thing entirely. She calls Darius that night. He sounds good. Tired in the way treatment makes a person tired, but underneath that, steady. Dr. Reeves called him personally this week, he says. Adjusted something in the protocol. Darius says he does not know why the adjustment was made, only that it is better. Zariah says, good. That's good. She does not tell him about the food. She does not tell him about the salt shaker. She listens to his voice for 22 minutes, and then they say goodnight, and she sets her phone face down on the kitchen counter and looks at the ceiling. At 10:47 p.m. her phone lights up. A number she does not have saved, but recognizes. A single text message. The Georgetown team flagged a coverage issue on Darius's next infusion. It has been corrected. You will not need to call. She reads it 3 times. Then she sets the phone back down and does not sleep well for the rest of the night, not because she is afraid, but because something is changing inside her, quiet and steady and entirely out of her control. The rice is 10 minutes in when the elevator opens. Zariah is not expecting anyone. The 14th floor shared kitchen on a Sunday morning is, as it has been every Sunday morning, empty, hers by default, by pattern, by the particular quiet of a building full of people who do not wake early on weekends. The commercial range is doing what it needs to do. The rice is past the point of being walked away from. She is standing at the stove with a wooden spoon and a specific kind of focus that requires the rest of the world to stay out of it. Joon-Seo walks in with his phone to his ear. He is heading for the espresso machine in the far corner, moving with the efficiency of a man who knows exactly which 2 things he came here for. He clocks her at the stove. He stops walking. She looks up from the rice. Keep stirring. He finishes his call. He makes his espresso. He does not leave. She does not invite him to stay. He does not ask to. He takes the chair at the far end of the long dining table, opposite end from where she will eventually sit, maximum distance, the geometry of 2 people who are both willing to share a room as long as it is clear they are not crowding each other. He opens his laptop. He works. The rice takes another 20 minutes. Zariah plates it. She stands at the counter for a moment, 2 plates in front of her, a decision she does not overthink, then sets the second plate at the midpoint of the table, halfway between her end and his, and sits down at her end to eat. A pause. The click of a laptop closing. She hears his chair pull back. He stands at the counter first, the way you eat something you're still deciding about, cautious, non-committal. Then he picks up the plate and carries it to the table. He sits down. Not at his end. 3 chairs closer. What is it called? He asks. Jollof rice. He eats. The bottom layer, it catches on purpose? You let it. She gestures with her fork. It's not a mistake. It's the best part. Something happens at the corner of his mouth. It is not a smile. It is the territory just beside a smile, the near arrival of one, held back by a man who has spent a very long time keeping his expressions on a short leash. But she sees it. She clocks it and files it in the same careful place she has been filing everything about him. They eat without talking. This is the thing that surprises her most. The silence does not require filling. 2 people in a large kitchen, food between them, the city gray and quiet through the glass below. She cannot name the last time silence with another person felt this close to restful. The elevator opens. A small person comes out. She is 5 years old and wearing a dinosaur shirt, and holding a piece of paper folded into thirds with the gravity of someone delivering classified information. Her name, Zariah will learn, is Sua. She walks across the kitchen with the directness of a child who always knows exactly where she is going, climbs into the chair directly beside Zariah, not beside her father, directly beside Zariah, and sets the folded paper on the table. You smell good, Sua says. Thank you, Zariah says. Sua nods like this is the correct and expected response. She unfolds the paper. It is a drawing in crayon, a house, and inside the house 3 figures. The middle one is taller than the others. There is something that might be a tree, or might be a lamp, beside the door. I drew this, Sua says, and slides it across to Zariah. Zariah looks at the drawing. She looks at the 3 figures. She looks at the child sitting beside her who has just handed a near stranger a drawing of what appears to be a household of 3 people and offered it like a gift. That's very nice, Zariah says carefully. That one is you. Sua points to the smallest figure, the one on the left side of the house. You're inside. That means you live there. She says this as established fact. Not a question. Not a suggestion. The reporting of something already decided. Zariah looks up at Joon-Seo across the table. He is looking at his daughter. His expression is the quietest she has seen on him. Not blank, not unmoved, something between attentive and undone. The look of a man watching something he did not expect and does not know yet whether to stop. Suah looks at Zariah with a child's direct, unfiltered examination. Why do you look like you belong here? The question lands in the room and stays there. Zariah has no answer. Not because she does not have words, she has plenty of words, she is very good at words, but because the question is so accurate, delivered so cleanly by a 5-year-old with crayon on her fingers, that deflection feels dishonest and honesty feels impossible. Suah. Joon-Seo says his daughter's name once. Quietly. The gentlest possible redirect. Suah takes her drawing back, slides off the chair, and goes to inspect the espresso machine. Joon-Seo and Zariah look at each other across a table that started at maximum distance, and is now 3 chairs shorter. Neither of them says a word about the drawing. That night, Georgetown University Hospital calls Zariah at 8:42 p.m. Darius's insurance carrier has filed a challenge against the treating physician's credentialing status within their network. It is not a simple clerical issue. The case manager's voice is careful, measured, and what she is actually saying beneath the measured words is, someone is pushing back. Someone with enough reach to find a pressure point inside a hospital billing system, and use it. Zariah knows exactly who. She sits in her apartment in the dark and does not call Joon-Seo. She sits with the knowledge of what Harlan Beaumont is capable of, the full shape of it, clear now, and she makes a decision she did not know she was close to making until this moment. She is not going to ask to be rescued. She is going to walk into it herself. The fax arrives at Georgetown University Hospital at 6:51 in the morning, and nobody on the receiving end immediately understands what it is. That is the point. It is not a threat. It carries no fingerprints. On the surface it reads like a routine administrative inquiry, a letter from the legal office of the Beaumont Group, addressed to the hospital's credentialing department, raising questions about whether Dr. Anita Reeves maintains current active status in the carrier network assigned to patient Darius Amara Cole. The language is measured. The tone is collegial. It is the kind of document that moves quietly through institutional channels because it does not look like what it actually is, which is a wall being built around a sick man's treatment, one polite sentence at a time. Zariah finds out on a Thursday. Not from the hospital. From Darius. He calls her at 7:22 p.m., and his voice has that careful, pressed-down quality it gets when he is trying not to alarm her, which alarms her immediately. The case manager called him directly, he says. Something about a credentialing review. Something about a potential gap in coverage. He does not know what it means. He is asking her because she always knows what things mean. She knows exactly what this means. She hangs up with Darius after telling him it will be handled, and she will call him tomorrow. Then she sits in her apartment kitchen with both hands flat on the counter, and stares at the wall for 90 seconds. Not because she is lost. Because she is thinking, fast and clean, mapping the architecture of what Harlan Beaumont just did. He did not come for her directly. He came for the things she cannot afford to lose. That is how men like Beaumont operate. They do not attack the person standing in front of them. That creates witnesses, records, accountability. They find the softer target. The brother in treatment. The coverage that requires paperwork to maintain. The physician whose network status can be called into question through a single carefully worded letter that will take 3 weeks to officially refute and cost Darius 2 infusions in the meantime. They do not destroy options. They erase them. One form at a time. One quiet letter at a time. She goes upstairs. This is the first time she has knocked on Joon-Seo's door with urgency. Every previous interaction has happened by accident, by arrangement, by the gravity of shared space. This is the first time she is standing at his door at 8:09 p.m., knuckles on the wood, choosing to come to him. He opens it in under 5 seconds. He is still dressed, black shirt, no jacket. He reads her face in the time it takes most people to say hello. "Come in," he says. She tells him everything. The facts. The credentialing letter. The carrier network language, and what it actually means in terms of Darius's infusion schedule. She does not soften any of it. She gives it to him the way he gave her the surveillance footage in the Beaumont East Wing, straight, full, no managed version. He listens without interrupting. When she finishes, the kitchen is quiet. "He did this to make you move," Joon-Seo says. "I know. He is expecting you to call someone. Make noise. Give him a reaction he can use." "I know that too." She crosses her arms. "I'm not giving him a reaction. I'm giving him a problem." Joon-Seo looks at her for a long moment. There is something happening behind his eyes. She has learned to read the difference between him calculating and him deciding, and right now he is deciding. "What do you want to do?" he asks. Not "what do you want me to do?" What do you want to do? The distinction is not small. "I want to respond to this the way it was sent," she says. "Quiet. Documented. Through the correct channels. I want his letter answered with something that makes it more expensive for him to keep pressing than to walk away. That requires someone inside the carrier network's compliance office. I know. And a formal complaint filed with the state insurance commissioner within 48 hours, which triggers a mandatory investigation hold on any coverage actions related to the patient named in the complaint." She stares at him. "You already know what the filing requires." "I looked into it," he says. 4 days ago." She goes still. 4 days ago I didn't know about the facts." "No," Joon-Seo says, and his voice does not change, does not perform anything. "But I knew Beaumont well enough to know he would not stay quiet. I looked into the protection mechanisms before he gave us a reason to use them." She does not have a word for what moves through her chest in that moment. It is not relief. Relief is passive. This is something with more weight than that. Something that feels like being caught before you fall, by someone who positioned themselves to catch you before you even leaned. She does not say thank you. She says, "I don't want revenge. I want him stopped. And I want Darius's coverage protected so completely that Beaumont cannot touch it again without triggering a federal audit." Joon-Seo holds her gaze. "Then we do this the right way." "The right way," she agrees. She goes back downstairs at 9:43 p.m. with a list of 3 things she needs to do before midnight and the specific, grounded feeling of a woman who has stopped waiting for the system to protect her and started building the protection herself. What she does not know, going back down in that elevator, is that Joon-Seo is already on the phone before her door closes. And that the call he is making is not to a lawyer. Zariah chose the right way. But what Joon-Seo is doing right now, on that phone call, in that penthouse, while she is downstairs making her list, is about to change the shape of this entire situation in a way she did not ask for and did not expect. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Zariah was right to choose the quiet approach? Or should she have let Joon-Seo go full force? Drop your take below. And if this story is hitting you, subscribe and turn on your notifications right now so you do not miss what happens next. The kitchen light is on at 11:40 at night, and Zariah is the reason. She is not hungry. She is making chamomile tea she does not need because her hands required something to do, and because the apartment felt too quiet after the night she just had, and because sometimes the ritual of a kettle and a mug is the only thing standing between a person and the particular 3 a.m. version of their own thoughts. She hears him before she sees him. The elevator. The hallway. Footsteps she has learned to identify without looking, unhurried, even the specific cadence of a man who has never needed to rush to get somewhere because the room always waits for him. Joon-Seo appears in the kitchen doorway and stops when he finds her there. She tips her chin toward the cabinet where she now knows he keeps his coffee, and he crosses the room and makes it without speaking. They stand on opposite sides of the kitchen island. 2 people and 2 hot drinks and 11 months of a story between them that neither of them has named yet. "I need to ask you something," he says. She sets down her mug. "Ask." He looks at her the way he always looks at her, directly, fully, like she is the only information in the room. Revenge. Or peace. 4 words. And yet the question fills the kitchen like water fills a room, pressing into every corner, leaving nowhere to stand that isn't wet. She knows what he means. She has known since she walked back downstairs after their conversation and laid on her apartment floor for 40 minutes staring at the ceiling. Joon-Seo Kwon has the capacity to end Harlan Beaumont. Not metaphorically. Professionally, financially, reputationally, he could dismantle every structure the man has ever built, and do it inside a quarter without raising his voice once. She has spent 2 months watching enough of this man's world to understand the architecture of what he can do when he decides to. And she would be lying to herself if she said the image of it did not feel good for exactly 6 seconds. Beaumont's name in a federal complaint. His firm's license under review. His wife's charity dinners cancelled. The specific, public, undeniable accounting of what he did to 17 people who trusted him with their labor and their time. 6 seconds. Then she thought about what it cost. What shape it left the person who chose it in. She exhales. Slow. Controlled. Peace, she says. Real peace. Not the kind that's just revenge wearing a cleaner shirt. Something in Joon-Seo's posture shifts. It is not dramatic. It is the kind of shift you only see if you have been paying close enough attention, which she has. A settling. Like a decision being absorbed into the body at a cellular level. You understand that protecting Darius still creates consequences for Beaumont, he says. Not a warning. He is making sure she has the full picture before she commits to it. Consequences are not the same as destruction, she says. He should lose things. He stole wages from 17 people and he went after my brother's treatment because he could not touch me directly. He does not walk away clean. But I am not going to burn his whole world down just because I have the match. She picks up her mug. I am not that person. And I do not want to become that person just because someone gave me permission to. Joon-Seo is quiet. He is looking at her with an expression she has not seen on him before. It is not admiration exactly. Admiration is too soft a word for the way he is looking at her. It is something closer to recognition. Like a man who has spent a very long time surrounded by people who would have said yes to the match, seeing someone choose differently. Then we remove the problem, he says. Cleanly. Permanently. With documentation that makes it impossible for him to try this approach again with anyone else. Yes. The compliance filing goes in at 9 a.m., he says. I have already spoken to the commissioner's office. The hold on Darius's coverage will be in place by morning. She stares at him. You already did it. I did the part one could do without requiring your decision, he says. The rest waits for you. She looks at this man in her kitchen at midnight, his coffee going warm, his collar still open, the city dark and indifferent behind the window, and she understands something she has been circling for 2 months without landing on it. He does not make decisions for her. He builds the conditions that let her make her own. How? She asks. How does it end for him? He looks at her steadily. Paper trails corrected. Carrier network compliance reviewed. 2 of his largest equity clients have already requested audits, independently, after I shared documentation of the wage patterns across 17 former staff members. A pause. His lead attorney resigned this morning. His firm's ability to obstruct your brother's coverage ends at 9 a.m. She breathes. And the people he stole from? A restitution framework has been filed, he says, as part of the compliance complaint. It names all 17. The kitchen is quiet. Then Zariah does something she did not plan to do. She laughs, not from happiness exactly, but from the release of something that has been held too tightly for too long. It comes out unguarded and real, and the sound of it fills the kitchen, and she watches Joon-Seo Kwon do the thing she has been waiting 2 months to see. He smiles. Not polite. Not controlled. Fully, without apology, and aimed directly at her. And standing at her kitchen island at 5 minutes to midnight, Zariah Amara Cole makes a decision that has nothing to do with contracts or arrangements or 30-day exit clauses. She made her decision. But she has not said it yet. And what she does not know is that Joon-Seo made his decision 3 months ago, and has been waiting for her to catch up ever since. What happens next is not what either of them planned. It is something they both chose, separately, without telling each other. And it is about to become impossible to ignore. Nothing explodes. Nothing burns. Nothing makes the evening news. That is how Zariah knows it is actually working. The compliance filing drops at 9:04 a.m. on a Friday morning, 12 minutes after the commissioner's office opens. By 9:41, a mandatory investigation hold has been placed on every coverage action tied to Darius Amara Cole's treatment file. The Beaumont Group's credentialing letter is frozen mid-process, not rejected, not responded to, simply suspended in bureaucratic amber while an official inquiry determines whether it was filed in good faith or as deliberate interference with active patient care. The answer, it turns out, takes 9 business days to confirm. The answer is no. It was not filed in good faith. The claims administrator who processed the original coverage challenge at the carrier network is placed on internal review 6 days after the filing. Not fired. Reassigned. To a department with no patient-facing authority, and no ability to approve or deny treatment claims. The reassignment is announced internally as a routine restructuring. Nobody outside the compliance office knows why it happened. Zariah finds out from Min-Jun, who delivers information the way he delivers everything, neutral, complete, no editorial. The administrator who handled Darius Cole's file has been moved. Min-Jun tells her on a Tuesday afternoon in the building lobby. His replacement approved the outstanding authorizations this morning. Backdated to cover the gap. Dr. Reeves's office has been notified. She stands in the lobby and absorbs it. The restitution framework, she says. The 17 former employees. Filed as a separate civil matter through the Labor Commissioner's office. The Beaumont Group's outside counsel received the documentation package Monday morning. And Beaumont himself? Min-Jun pauses, not uncertainty, just precision. His 2 largest equity clients have suspended their management agreements with his firm pending the audit outcomes. His firm has lost operating authority over the 3 commercial properties Mr. Kwon was acquiring. The acquisition proceeds without his involvement, effective immediately. She exhales slowly. His attorney resigned last Thursday. Publicly, it is a personal decision. The letter is on the record. This is what the end of something looks like, Zariah thinks, when it is done correctly. Not a scene. Not a confrontation. Not a single dramatic moment anyone can quote. Just a series of quiet, documented, procedurally correct actions that one by one remove every structural support from under a man who built his whole operation on the assumption that the people he hurt did not have the resources to respond. Real power, she is beginning to understand, does not need an audience. Darius calls on a Friday. He sounds like himself, the version of himself that exists before the treatment fatigue sets in, the version she has not heard consistently in 14 months. Dr. Reeves called him personally, he says. All authorizations are approved and confirmed through the end of the fiscal year. His next 4 infusions are fully covered, no gaps, no pending reviews. Z, he says. What did you do? I found help, she says. Good help. A pause. She can hear him smiling through the phone. This good help got a name? He does. Another pause longer. Z. Don't, she says. But she is smiling when she says it. She goes upstairs that evening, not to report, not because there is anything left to manage. She goes upstairs because she wants to. Because that distinction has stopped feeling complicated and started feeling like the most honest thing about her current life. Joon-Seo is in the kitchen. Sua is at the counter doing something with crayons that requires intense concentration and the occasional declaration of artistic intent. The kitchen smells like rice and something smoky. Zariah stops in the doorway. You tried to make jollof rice again, she says. Soo-ah looks up immediately. The fire came back, she announces. Appa said words. The fire is part of the process, Zaraya says. That is what I told her, Joon-Seo says, not turning from the stove. He used a fire extinguisher, Soo-ah adds, with significant satisfaction. Zaraya puts her hand over her mouth. She crosses the kitchen and looks at the pot. The bottom is dark, not burned the right way, but dark the wrong way. She takes the spoon from Joon-Seo's hand without asking. He lets her. You added too much water, she says. I know that now. And you turned the heat up when it wasn't catching instead of waiting. I know that too. She stirs. He stands beside her, not behind her, beside her, close enough that she can feel the warmth off his arm. Soo-ah watches them from the counter with the expression of someone collecting evidence. What did you do? Zaraya asks quietly, not about the rice. Everything that could be done, he says, just as quietly. And nothing you asked me not to. She keeps stirring. He confronted you? He tried. What happened? A pause. He lost the argument. She looks sideways at him. That's all you're going to say? He lost the argument, Joon-Seo repeats. Thoroughly. In front of 2 of his board members. He picks up his coffee. And then he signed a document. She stares at him. What document? He says. The one that makes what he did to those 17 people a matter of public record. The kitchen is quiet except for the sound of the rice and Soo-ah drawing and the city outside doing what it always does. Zaraya turns back to the stove. She adds a pinch of salt. She adjusts the heat to where it needs to be. More pepper, Joon-Seo says. She adds more pepper. And for the first time in a very long time, the evening feels like something worth being fully present for. Beaumont signed. The 17 people are on record. Darius is covered through the year. And in a kitchen in DuPont Circle, a man who moved a salt shaker 4 inches to the left 2 months ago is now standing close enough to feel the warmth of someone he has been quietly, patiently, steadily moving toward. But there is still something neither of them has said out loud. And the longer they wait to say it, the heavier it gets. The terrace door is open on a Thursday evening and Zaraya is only out there because Soo-ah lost her left shoe. This is the complete truth. The search covered the hallway, the elevator lobby, and the space behind the large clay pot near the service door before the shoe was located beneath the bench outside the 14th floor shared kitchen, exactly where Soo-ah left it when she sat down to examine a bug 40 minutes ago. Crisis resolved. She recovered. Soo-ah is back inside, satisfied. But the terrace door is still open, and the evening is the color of rust and ash, the specific DC autumn sky that looks like it is apologizing for summer, and promising nothing about winter, and Zaraya steps through because the air out there smells like rain that is not here yet. Joon-Seo is already at the railing. He is not on his phone. He is not working. He is just standing there looking at the city the way she has seen him look at very few things, without an agenda behind his eyes. Like he is allowing himself to simply be in a place without managing anything about it. She steps out. The door drifts behind her. She does not go back inside. They stand there for a full 2 minutes without speaking. The city moves below them, headlights, a siren 4 blocks east, the low rumble of the metro line underground. Above it all, up here, it is still. There's something I need to tell you, he says. He does not look away from the city. I want to say it correctly, so I'm going to take a moment. She turns to face him. He stays forward. I was already inside the Beaumont estate when you were hired. He begins. My interest in Harlan Beaumont predated your employment by 6 months. When you were added to the staff roster, I ran the same background review I run on anyone in close proximity to my active interests. A pause. You were not random to me. I knew your name. I knew Darius's situation. I knew the financial position you were managing before the morning in the kitchen. The city keeps moving below them. Zaraya is very still. You didn't arrange for me to be hired, she says. It is not a question, she already knows the answer, but she needs to hear him confirm it out loud. No. The staffing agency placed you independently. I had no part in it. He turns to look at her now, and the evening light does something honest to his face, shows the age at the corners of his eyes, the steadiness that is not indifference but discipline, built over a long time and maintained at a cost she is only beginning to understand. But I knew who you were before the orange juice. Before I spoke. I want you to have that full picture. You deserve it. She nods slowly. Why tell me now? Because it has been sitting here, he says, between us for months. And I do not carry things I should have set down. She looks at the city. She thinks about what it means, that this man, who could have managed her from a distance and called it due diligence, chose instead to walk into a kitchen and place himself between her and something ugly. Not because protocol required it. Because he decided to. You could have stayed back, she says quietly. That morning? The kitchen. Beaumont was going to stop eventually. You could have watched from the doorway and done nothing, and it would have been completely within the terms of whatever you were there to do. Yes, he says. But you didn't. No. Why? He is quiet for a long time. Long enough that she thinks he might not answer, that the question might be the kind he keeps rather than gives. Then he says, Because I do not involve myself unless something matters. And she mattered. The word lands before she registers it. She. Not the situation. Not the documentation. Not the case against Beaumont. She. Something cracks open in Zariah Mara Cole's chest that she has been keeping sealed for 11 months. Longer, maybe, if she is being all the way honest, which she is learning to be. She presses her hands against the railing. She breathes through it. You gave me a door, she says, when she can speak at the right volume again. Before you gave me a reason to stay. The exit clause on day 1. The account only I could access. The 30-day notice with no conditions. She looks at him. Every man I have ever known with the kind of power you have used it to make leaving harder. You used yours to make it easier. You made sure I could always choose to walk away. That's... She stops. Starts again. That is not a small thing. He holds her gaze. He does not move. He does not fill the space with anything. He lets her have the full weight of what she just said, which is how she knows he actually understands it. May I? He asks. 2 words. Quiet. An open door, not a push through it. She knows what he is asking. She has known it was coming the way you know weather, in the pressure of the air before the first drop falls. She looks at this man. The food before she arrived. The salt shaker, 4 inches to the left. The compliance filing 4 days before the fax. The document that put 17 people's names on the public record. The jollof rice he attempted twice and ruined both times without once asking her to just teach him. She steps toward him. The terrace door bangs open. I found the other one. Sua erupts onto the terrace in her socks, holding a shoe above her head, the one that was not lost, the partner of the recovered shoe, which she has apparently been carrying since the beginning of all of this as documentation. She looks between them. At the distance, or lack of it, between them. She tilts her head. Why are you standing like that? We were looking at the city, Zariah says. It's dark, Sua says. Yes, says Joon-Seo. His voice is entirely steady. Sua looks at them both with the forensic patience of a child who knows she interrupted something and has decided this is hilarious. I'm hungry, she announces, and goes back inside. The door swings shut. Zariah and Joon-Seo stand in the space left behind. Then she starts laughing, the real kind, unplanned, the kind that skips past every managed thing she has built around herself and comes straight from somewhere unguarded. It fills the terrace and goes up into the dark DC sky, and she cannot stop it, and does not try. Joon-Seo smiles. Wide. Unhurried. Like he has been saving it specifically for this moment, and this woman, and is only now deciding she has earned the full version. May I? He asks again. Softer this time. Still waiting. She steps the rest of the way toward him. And this time, nothing interrupts. They are no longer an arrangement. They have not been for a long time, and they both know it now. But knowing it and naming it are two different things. And what comes next? The moment the contract expires, the moment the clock runs to zero and neither of them has left, is going to require a question neither of them has asked yet. One of them is going to have to say the word first. And it will not be the word you are expecting. The contract expires on a Tuesday morning at exactly 12:01 a.m. Zariah knows this because she set a reminder in her phone 8 months ago, when she signed the document, and labeled it exit window in bright orange so it would be impossible to ignore. She set the reminder because the exit window was the whole point, the proof that she was choosing every day she stayed. The evidence that the door was always open. The reminder goes off at midnight. She looks at it. She clears it. She goes back to sleep. The next evening, Monday, the night before the contract formally closes, there is a knock on her apartment door at 7:15. She has lived in this building for 8 months and Joon-Seo Kwon has never knocked on her door. Not once. Every conversation they have had in this building has happened by proximity, by shared space, by the slow and deliberate gravity of two people who keep arriving in the same room. He is standing in the hallway with 2 cups of tea. She steps back and lets him in without a word. They sit at her kitchen table. Her dishes, her cast iron pan on the stove, her mug collection on the open shelf, Sua's most recent drawing on her refrigerator, placed there 3 weeks ago during an unsupervised visit that Sua described afterward as checking on things. The drawing shows 4 figures now. Not 3. 4. The 4th one is small and wearing what appears to be a cape. Nobody has asked Sua about the 4th figure. Joon-Seo sets down his cup. He looks at it. He looks at her. The arrangement ends tomorrow, he says. I know. I want to ask you something before it does. She wraps both hands around her mug and waits. He is quiet for a long moment. Not avoiding. Arriving. The silence of a man who has thought about this conversation more than once and is choosing to be fully present for it rather than let preparation replace being here. Stay, he says. One word. Not as an arrangement. Not because a contract creates a reason or because I have something to offer that makes leaving impractical. He holds her gaze without flinching. Stay because this is your home. Because Sua drew you into the house before she knew she was doing it, and has not drawn you out since. Because I have no interest in what any room in this building feels like without you in it. A pause, clean and unhurried. Stay as a choice. Nothing else. The kitchen is quiet. Zariah looks at this man across her table and she lets herself remember all of it, from the beginning, from the order it actually happened. The glass of orange juice and the voice from the doorway. The surveillance room and the 17 names. The 12 pages with the exit clause and paragraph 1. The food in the refrigerator, labeled in precise handwriting, before she had told him anything. The salt shaker, 4 inches, 8 inches, migrating toward her across a counter in a kitchen she now owns like it was always hers. Darius's voice going lighter on the phone. Sua on the terrace in her socks. The smile, finally, wide and unhurried and aimed only at her. I know about the salt shaker, she says. He blinks, barely, but she sees it. I know about the food before I arrived. I know you contacted Dr. Reeves's office 4 days before I called you about the facts. I know about the restitution framework, all 17 names. I know you tried to make my rice twice and ruined it both times and never once asked me to just show you how. She sets down her mug. I have been paying attention just as much as you have. I just needed you to know that. Joon-Seo is very still across the table. The first day, Zariah says. You gave me a way out before you gave me a reason to stay. You did not have to do that. You had every resource that would have made leaving complicated, and you built me an exit door instead and stepped back and waited to see what I would choose. She looks at him steadily. That is the kind of man you are. And it is what you showed me was possible. Not the arrangement. You. He reaches across the table. He does not take her hand. He places his palm flat on the table beside hers, open, unhurried, a question with no pressure on the answer. She turns her hand over. He exhales, quiet, private, the sound of something that has been held for a long time finally being set down properly. I stopped surviving, she says softly. The day you let me choose. From the hallway, small feet. Are you doing the quiet thing again? Sua appears in the doorway in pajamas, holding the fourth figure drawing, the one with the cape, and looking between them with the expression of someone who has been collecting data for 8 months and considers herself close to a conclusion. Yes, Joon-Seo says without moving. Sua looks at their hands on the table. She looks at their faces. She nods once, the way people nod when something confirms what they already knew. Okay, she says, and goes back down the hall. Zariah laughs, quiet and full, the kind that comes from deep inside a life that has stopped holding its breath. 6 months later, on a Sunday morning when the light comes in from the east and the jollof rice is already making the building smell like something worth returning to, Sua is on the counter swinging her feet and demanding to know if Zariah is going to be there forever. Zariah looks up from the stove. She looks at Joon-Seo, who is at the table with his coffee and does not look up from it but is absolutely listening. What do you think? Zariah asks. Sua considers this with the gravity of a person making a formal ruling. Yes, she says. Because you moved the salt shaker back. Zariah turns back to the stove. Joon-Seo, without looking up from his coffee, says, More pepper. She adds more pepper. The kitchen holds it, the smoke from the base, the morning light, the sound of Sua swinging her feet, and everything that was written as temporary becomes, without announcement, without ceremony, without a single dramatic moment that anyone could quote, permanent. He looks up from his coffee. He looks at her at the stove. She can feel it before she turns. She turns. You are not a problem, he says. She holds his gaze. I know, she says. And that is all. And it is everything. That is the end of their beginning. Zariah Amara Cole walked into a mansion with orange juice drying in her hair and walked out with the kind of life she had stopped believing was available to her. Not because someone rescued her. Because someone built her a door, stepped back, and let her choose. And she chose.